This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Baruch Haba, welcome everyone to the penultimate shiur before the Yom Hadin, Rosh Hashanah. So we'd like to present tonight really an incredible and remarkable way to understand the most well-known Gemara relevant to the Yom Tov of Rosh Hashanah, namely the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah Tazayin Amud Beis about what is called Shloisha Sfarim Niftachim. The Gemara tells us that on Rosh Hashanah, 3 books are open. The Gemara says one of Rishaim Gemurin, absolute wicked people. The Echad Shel Tzadikim, one of the complete righteous. The Echad Shel Bainoniyim, and one of the in-betweens, the mediocre people. The Gemara says Tzadikim Gemurim are written and sealed immediately for life. The Rishaim Gemurim, they're written and sealed immediately, not for life. Bainoniyim, the in-between, are suspended. They're in limbo from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur. The Gemara says if they are Zoiche, they get life. If they're not Zoiche, Chas v'Shalom, they get Misa. That is the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, probably the most famous Gemara in Rosh Hashanah. Okay, what is not as well known is the proofs and the evidence that the Gemara has where it is rooted, these 3 books in the Tanakh. In other words, we know that there are 3 books in Shemayim, and if we were to use our imagination, we would probably imagine God has 3 books. I remember when I was in 5th grade, the Rebbe had a Sefer HaZachronos. I was sitting next to your son in the 5th grade, and it was a privilege if the Talmud got to be the one to write in the Sefer HaZachronos. So the Rebbe would appoint a Talmud to write, and you would record. Yankel asked a good kasha, Beryl gave a good teretz, Feivel is a Rasha Marusha. And obviously people would want to befriend the guy who wrote the Sefer HaZachronos, because as you can imagine, what the student wrote in the Sefer HaZachronos and what the Rebbe wanted the student to write in the Sefer HaZachronos didn't always have anything to do with each other. Anyway, but that's just, an old memory. But what we imagine, that when the Gemara says there are 3 books, God has a big book of the wicked, because the Gemara says most they're more Rishaim than Tzadikim. The Gemara says Olam Haba was created with the smallest letter because less people end up over there. So we imagine there's a big book of the Rishaim, maybe there's a smaller book of the Tzadikim, maybe there's a big book of the Beinanim. There's 3 books, the Gemara says. Now, how do we know there are 3 books? The Gemara brings some interesting rayas. Amar Rabbi Abin, Maikra. The pasuk says, "Yimachu misefer chayim." It will be erased from the book of the living. V'yim tzadikim al yikasevu. And with the righteous they will not be written. The word yimachu, they will be erased from the book. That's the book of the wicked. When the Torah says they'll be erased from the book, that refers to the wicked. When it says the book of life, that's the book of the tzaddikim. And with the righteous they won't be written, that's the book of the in-between. So the Gemara is saying there are 3 books. What are they called? The book of the wicked is called erased. The book of the righteous is called the book of the righteous is called Sefer Chaim. And the book of the in-betweens is called they won't be written with the righteous. Now, right off the bat, and today's shiur comes primarily from the Sefer Yosef, which is a collection of drashos of Rabbi Yosef Engel. I see my good friend Chanoch Weiss brought me the Sefer of Reb Hersh Friedman, who put together Mamish, an amazing collection of the writings of Rabbi Yosef Engel. All the drashos of Rabbi Yosef Engel, or many of the drashos, and this particular drasha is called Shev Denechemasa. And I've been to a number of kvarim. One of the most interesting that I've been to was in Vienna, which Rabbi Yosef Engel was buried there. I actually went to that country just to go to that kever. I don't know, I had such a connection with Rabbi Yosef Engel. I personally find his Torah so exhilarating because it weaves together Nigle, Nistar, Chasidus, Kabbalah, Lamdos. Okay, Rabbi Yosef Engel doesn't need anybody's haskama, certainly not mine. But Rabbi Yosef Engel's Torah is really echad b'minoi, very unique. And Rabbi Yosef Engel asks a very interesting question. The first question he asks are, what exactly are these 3 books in heaven? What are they? Well, God has these 3 big books. Actually, I'm remembering now, when I started in my previous Rabbanos in Queens, my first month on the job, so Queens is in New York City. This is Nassau County, that was in New York City. So in New York City, Rabbanim get free parking spots in front of their shul. So it says no parking anytime, and it's reserved for the rabbi. The only thing is, you have to get the certificate of occupancy and letter of incorporation. So where in the world are you going to get these from? So we had to go down to City Hall in Queens, and we went to the clerk, and the clerk says, what year was the shul built? I think it was the first shul in Queens, in the 50s. The clerk says, come. And she takes us to this big room. And it's you ever see the ad for Yetzer Hara? It's this bookcase, with 500 shelves. And the books on the shelves were this big. And, she had to take us to the right shelf and take out a book. I think the book was it's a book Oig Melech Habasha, and, would read that kind of book. It was 7 feet tall or 5 feet tall. And he opens this huge book and pulls out the certificate of occupancy. Okay. Anyway, tonight is, nostalgia night. Anyway, so we imagine God has these big books in heaven. What exactly are these books? Well, God needs books. First of all, why doesn't he get it computerized? That's what everybody tells me. What are you busy with the files for? Get a computer. Why doesn't Hashem have a computer system? What exactly are these books? But furthermore, if you look at the Gemara's other raya to the 3 books, Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar Mehacha, that how do we know there are 3 books? From the pasuk, V'im ayin mechenina misifrecha asher kosafta. Moshe Rabbeinu tells God, save the Jewish people, otherwise get me out of your book. So the Gemara says this pasuk references the 3 books. Mechenina, erase me, is the book of the wicked. Your book is the book of the tzaddikim. That you wrote is the book of the Beinonim. Says Rabbi Yosef Engel, Mamisha Peladika Kasha. He said, I don't understand. Didn't we learn in kindergarten and in 1st grade and 2nd grade that the 3 books are Yankel's a tzaddik, so he's written in the book of the tzaddikim that he put on tzitzis and he wore tefillin and he kissed the mezuzah and he did all kinds of mitzvahs. He didn't bring his phone into the Beis HaKnesses, all the good stuff. And then Beryl is a Rosh Marusha, so he's written in the book of the Rishaim. And in that book, he's a Ganav and a Noyef and a Shakran and a Yepasa B'chalav. So the book of the wicked is also written. The book of the tzaddikim is written. The book of the wicked is written. Why does the Gemara keep on referring to the book of the wicked as erased? Every time we reference the book of the wicked, what's the remez to the book of the wicked? Yimachu mi sefer, zesifran shal Risham. Mechenina, that's the book of the Risham. What does erased got to do with the wicked? The tzaddikim are written in the book of the tzaddikim are written in the good book, and the Risham are written in the bad book. The Risham are not less written than the tzaddikim. There's nothing erased about the Risham. So why do we always reference the book of the wicked as the book that's erased? Only the tzaddikim have something that's written, and the Risham don't have anything that's written. And why is the Beinonim? You know what the book of the Beinonim is? They won't be written with the tzaddikim. Why aren't they in a 3rd book, an in-between book, where they're written like mediocre actions? Like he put up a mezuzah, but it was only kosher b'di'evet, or he wore tefillin, but he diverted his mind from. Why the Beinonim are always referenced from it wasn't really written, a book that wasn't really written. In other words, the Gemara seems to imply the Tzaddikim's book is completely written, the Risham's book is erased, and the Beinonim is like a quasi-writing. That's not how we imagined it. We imagined it that there are 3 books, and in every book it's written what you did, good, bad, or in between. But furthermore, asked Rabbi Yosef Engel, how does the Gemara prove from the pasuk that these are 3 books in heaven? When Moshe Rabbeinu said, erase me from the book, what book was he talking about? Talking about the Torah, Sefer Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu said, get me out of your book. Ben Ish Chai says, misifrecha, misefer chaf, get me out of the 20th book, which is Parshas Tetzaveh, misefer chaf. But Moshe Rabbeinu was not talking about some kind of imaginary books or real books in heaven. He's talking about the Sefer Torah. If you want me to be the leader, then save the Jews. If you don't save them, get me out of your book. Save Vayidaber Hashem el ploini lemar, but not Moshe. So how could the Gemara learn from Mecheni Nami Sifracha Asher Kosafta that there are any other books other than the Sefer Torah? Okay, next. The Gemara in Tainus Yud Aleph Amud Beis. The Gemara wants to know, La'achar mea ve'esrim shana, when it's all said and done, when the game is over. Yeah? So you can go upstairs, and Hashem's going to say, Nu, Rabbi Yid, what'd you do? So Hashem's going to call witnesses. Who are the witnesses? The Gemara brings different perushim, your house, the walls, the beams. And the Gemara brings a deya, Rav Chidka Omer, Nishmasai shel Adam hi me'ida alav. The soul of man will testify against him. Meaning the person will come up and Rebbeinu Shalom will say, Rabbi Yid, you have 200 mitzvahs, 201 averos. This ain't good. And you say, no, it's not true. I have 200 mitzvahs and 197 averos. And God's going to say, can we get a witness in? And who's going to walk in? Your soul. The question is, Rabbi Yosef Engel wants to know, how will your soul bear testimony? Your soul's going to, what exactly is the soul going to say? Did the soul see what you did? Does the soul, can it see? What is it? What kind of witness and testimony will the soul give? Another interesting point. There's a Medrash in Bamidbar Rabbah. The Medrash references 4 kinds of Jews. Jews that never sinned, Gerim, Yirei Shamayim, and Balei Teshuvah. And the Gemara says, you know where Balei Teshuvah are alluded to? In the Pasuk, V'chein ata moitzu arba kitos, number 7, third line. Ze yomer l'Hashem ani. When the Pasuk says, this one says, I belong to God, that refers to Jews that never sinned. When it says, this is called Yaakov, these are righteous, these are Gerim. V'ze yichtov yadoi l'Hashem. The Pasuk that says, he will write for God, that refers to Balei Teshuvah. Balei Teshuvah are called those who write for God. Why are Balei Teshuvah called those who write for God? Well, what does writing for God have to do with Balei Teshuvah? Okay. The Gemara in Moed Katan. I think so far every Gemara we had so far was, from we've done in Daf HaShavua over here. The Gemara says if somebody is, heaven forbid, at a very tragic occurrence, if somebody sees the death of a Jew, so if somebody is present at Yitzias Neshama, they have to tear Kriya. Why? Because it's like witnessing the burning of a Sefer Torah. So therefore, if somebody is present at Yitzias Neshama, you have to rip your clothing. The question is, why is the death of a Jew like the burning of a Sefer Torah? What does the death of a Jew got to do with the burning of a Sefer Torah? So Rashi on the Rif says that a Jew is like a Sefer Torah. Why is a Jew like a Sefer Torah? Because he could have learned more. If the person dies young, chas v'shalom, he could have learned much more. So all that Torah that he could have learned is lost forever. So it's like the burning of a Sefer Torah. However, comes Rabbi Yosef Engel and he says, in his opinion, he would say a different pshat than Rashi. That if somebody dies, chas v'shalom, and one is present, it's not like the burning of a Sefer Torah because the person could have learned more, but in a different sense, a person is analogous to a Sefer Torah. There's a different way in which a person is analogous to a Sefer Torah, as we are about to see, mamish, something amazing. The Gemara tells us in Masechta Nida, Daf Lamed Amud Beis. Number 12. Mr. Deutsch, how's Australia? Everything good over there? Okay. I'm glad. So, the Gemara, you inquire, they opened up the shuls yet? No. No shuls. Okay, so we're a little bit ahead, Baruch Hashem. But the Gemara Nida says that the best time in life, when is the best time in life? Some people say when they're younger. Some people say when they're older. But the Gemara says neither. The best time is in utero. The best time is, basically you're floating around. You could do somersaults, upside down, right side up. Nobody bothers you. You have endless supply of food. It's quiet, you could relax. That's the best time in life. Then an angel comes, he lights a candle on your head, and you could see from one end of the world to the other end of the world. You could see what's going on everywhere. You have front row seats of like all the greatest sights in the world. And an angel comes, the Gemara says, Umalamdin oisai kol haTorah kula. They teach you the whole Torah. Not just, Bavli. They teach you Shalmi, Tosefta, Sifra, Sifri, everything. Now the Gemara doesn't say who teaches you the Torah. Who's the Rebbe? Who's the Rebbe? Who exactly teaches it? And then the Gemara says, V'kivan shabal avra olam. As soon as it comes time to be born, ba malach, an angel comes. Now also interesting, who's the malach? Which malach? Gabriel, Michael, Raphael, Metatron, which malach? V'satray al piv, he smacks you in the face. U'meshakchay kol haTorah kula. And he makes you forget the whole Torah.
What was the purpose of learning?
Just read a story, back in Europe, the minhag was, the Rav would, somebody asked me, are you allowed to hit your kids? So today, it's, it says in Mishlei you got to hit, But back in the day, of course, a parent hit their kid. Not only that, in Europe, at 100 years ago, there's a particular story. One of the Gedolei Hadar, I'm not going to say who, but I can tell you where you could read about it. The Rabbanim would hit the Balabatim. That was how you can't. In fact. In fact, there was once a Rav was going around, and he noticed that the tefillin of one of the Balabatim was a little bit out of place. So he went to fix it, and the person moved his hand get lost. Smacked him. Now, if the Rav gave a smack, you would have to move out of the city. That's how it worked. And the man moved out of the city, and nobody heard from him. So it's interesting. This Rav, who would later go on to be one of the chief rabbis of the state of Israel, ended up having to come to America to fundraise. And this person became a very big gvir. And he thanked the partaker. He said, if not for you, I would have been stuck in Europe. I've been lost during the war, and I would have been in Ani ve'Evyain. Anyway, but this is what the Malach does. The Malach comes, he gives mamish a zetz, you forgot everything you ever learned. Who's the Malach? Who's the Malach? Also, the Gemara doesn't say. It doesn't say who the Rebbe was, and it doesn't say who the guy, the Malach who punches you in the face. Shenemar la pesach chatas roivet. The Gemara does cite one pasuk. Sin crouches at the door. Now, says Rabbi Yosef Engel, we know another discussion about this pasuk, sin crouches at the door, from the Gemara in Sanhedrin. The Gemara in Sanhedrin records a conversation between Antoninus and Rebbe. Antoninus asks Rebbe, when does the Yetzer Hara come? In utero or when you're born? Yeah? So, Antoninus, Rebbe said, Rebbe said, in utero. So Antoninus said, can't be in utero, because then the baby would kick and come out. So Rebbe says, so what do you say? Antoninus said, when the baby is born. Rebbe said, Antoninus taught me that the Yetzer Hara doesn't come till the baby is born. Shenemar la pesach chatos roivetz. Oh, that means that we're applying the pasuk. Very good. So if I'm not mistaken, Rabbi Kiva Eger on the page in the Gilyon Hashas cites the Be'er Sheva, who asks that we know about Esav was kicking to come out when he was Mefarch his Lotzei, so that's a kash on this Gemara. And the Mefarshei Rashi bring that also on Rashi in Parshas Taldos. But the bottom line is, the Gemara says that when does the Yetzer Hara come? When you're born. Shenemar la pesach chatas roivetz. Now the Gemara Nida says that an angel comes and makes you forget the Torah the moment you're born. Shenemar la pesach chatas roivetz. So says Rabbi Yosef Engel, putting two and two together, if la pesach chatas roivetz indicates the Yetzer Hara comes when you're born, then the Gemara that says that when you're born someone comes and punches you in the face and makes you forget the learning, that must be the Yetzer Hara. So Yetzer Hara comes and he punches someone in the face and he makes you forget the learning. Now I once saw a Piskei Tosfos Masechta Nedarim Oisamach Beis. Who teaches you the whole Torah? The Yetzer Tov. However, he's teaching you until you're born. When you're born, the Yetzer Hara comes, and the Yetzer Hara, He punches the Yetzer Tov. The Yetzer Tov leaves until you're 13 years old, and some people much, much, much later. And the Yetzer Tov is gone, and that's when you forget the Torah. So it's very interesting. The Yetzer Hara makes you forget the Torah. Who taught you the Torah? How did you learn the Torah? And how did you forget the Torah? That's the subject of today's Shiur. And we're about to learn something, Oyem v'Noira. For those familiar with Tehillim, look at number 17. David HaMelech says, Oz Amarti, then I said, Hine Basi, I've come, B'Megillah Sefer Kosav Alai. In a scroll it's written on me. Lasais Ritzoncha Leikai Chafatzti, God, I want to do your will, V'Sayrascha, and your Torah B'Soich Meiai is in my intestines. Says Hagoin Rabbi Yosef Engel, the Jewish soul is klaf. And on the klaf of the Jewish soul is written, Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim b'yes ha'aretz v'ha'aretz ha'isa soya v'vayo v'choshech ha'pnei sahayim b'rachlim rachabas ha'bnei ma'yim alkim yihi'ar. And it's ad, the end of Zois HaBracha. And then it continues, Me'emasai kar neshma ba'arvis. And it continues, Chamesh esrei noshim poitros soraseyim. And it has Kol HaTorah Kula, Chumash, Mishnayos, Gemara, Tosefta, Sifra, Sifri. So you say, so I should be a Goyin Olam. And the answer is, you once were. When? In Utero. Because all you had to do is check the cheat sheet. It says it on your soul. So then you're telling me if I could read my soul, I would be a Goyin Olam? Yeah. So why can't I read my soul? It's because when the Yetzer Hara comes and he coats your soul in like a screen. It's cloudy. You ever try to do Kiddush Levana on a cloudy night if it's really cloudy? By the way, I told you this, Maisa. I was walking Matzah Shabbos. It was 11:45 p.m. And I look up in the nighttime sky, and lo and behold, I look at the moon, and I tell my wife, what in the world is next to the moon? So there's a red star next to the moon. She said, what? It's a plane. I said, no, I'm not an astronomer. Mars and the moon were in confluence for 3 days this week. It's mamish oyem v'noira. I'm sorry. I'll send you a picture. So what does that have to do with anything? Kiddush Levana on a cloudy night, yeah? Kiddush Levana. You ever try to do Kiddush Levana? You can't see the moon, sometimes it's so cloudy. Says Rabbi Yosef Engel, the taivas of Tanuge El Mazah, desire for this world, the pursuit of money, the pursuit of pleasure, pursuit of kavod, it's like a thick coating that covers the Sefer Torah that is your soul, and you can't read it. You cannot read your Sefer Torah. In Utero, you didn't have the Yetzer Hara, so therefore the letters of the Torah were illuminative. But, says Rabbi Yosef Engel, if a person overcomes his Yetzer Hara, then you don't even need to have Yegiah and Torah. There's a way to master the whole Torah without effort. And that is conquer your Yetzer Hara. If you conquer Yetzer Hara, then you have access to what's written on your soul, and you can actually master the Torah even without Amelos and Yegiah, and we're going to talk about that. Says Rabbi Yosef Engel, it comes out that this would explain the Gemara in Avodah Zarah Chesam and Beis. The Gemara in Avodah Zarah said the Romans were in war with the Greeks for something like 32 years, and the Romans could not prevail until the Romans teamed up with the Jews, and the Romans got into a whole conversation. Any jewelers here? Okay, but anyway, the Romans got into a whole conversation. If you have a diamond and a ruby, what should be a setting for what? And you have emeralds and you have gems. Until the Greeks asked the Romans, and if you have a gem and a Sefer Torah, what's more important? The Roman says a Sefer Torah. And we have a Sefer Torah and we have Jews with us. So Rabbi Yosef Engel asks, why do they mention anything about Jews? The question is, do they have a Sefer Torah? So just say, we have a Sefer Torah. What do the Jews got to do with it? Says Rabbi Yosef Engel, this is exactly the point. And that is, a Jew in his ideal form is a Sefer Torah. It's written on him, Kol HaTorah Kula. And we could say, that's the meaning of the Gemara, Kama Tipshai Hai Inshi, how foolish people are. Tekame Mikame Gavara, Tekame Mikame Sefer Torah, they stand up for a Sefer Torah, Tekame Mikame Gavre Rabba, and they don't stand up for a great person. Because a great person is a Sefer Torah. because on the person is written the words of the Torah, and he has not coded it and covered it. Marv Rabbi say, let's get a load of this. Comes Rabbi Yosef Engel and he says something astounding. Do you remember the Gemara in Ksubas on Daf Kuf Daled? Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, at the end of his life, he lifted up his 10 fingers and he said, Ribono Shel Olam, it is revealed and known before you that I exerted myself with all of my fingers in Torah. And I did not get pleasure from this world, even with my small finger. Rebbe made 2 statements. He involved himself in Torah. He was Amel in Torah. He was Yageya in Torah. He toiled in Torah, and he did not take pleasure from this world, even though he could have. He was one of the wealthiest people who ever lived. Okay? Teshuvah says, Teshuvah quotes a medrash. Teshuvah says, instead of a person davening to the Ribono Shel Olam, please allow the words of Torah to enter my heart. We all know you could learn, but the Torah doesn't really penetrate. So says the Gemara, it's so important to daven to Ribono Shel Olam that the Torah should penetrate your heart. But before you pray that the Torah should penetrate your heart, more important, you should pray that the delicacies and the desserts that you eat don't penetrate your soul. Why? How do I know? We learned it from Rebbe. So firstly, Rabbi Yosef Engel asks, we learn from Rebbe, you shouldn't pursue taiva. I need Rebbe to teach me that. Everybody knows that. I don't need to learn that from Rebbe. Why would the Medrash say we learn from Rebbe? You're right. Rebbe did say, I did not get hana from this world, even in iota. But why do we need to learn that from Rebbe? This is not like Rebbe invented the concept that you shouldn't immerse yourself in the desires of this world. And furthermore, I have a question for you. Let's take a poll. You know? Now I know, no polls are accurate. My polls are very accurate. I had them, tested. What's more important? Good health or money? Let's take a poll. Who says money? Who says good health? Okay.
One for each.
Okay, so now I have a question. Does the following make sense? Since good health is more important than money, instead of davening for money, just daven for good health. Does that make sense?
Hold on, we do daven for health. For animal.
I got that. I know, but now let's put that aside. Now just follow my poll for a minute. Good health is better than money. Does it make sense to say, instead of davening for money, daven for good health?
No, they're 2 different things.
Exactly. It's mutually one thing has nothing to do with the other. You need both. You need good health, but you don't have money. You're not going to be able to eat. You're not going to be able to live. So what kind of chachma is there in saying, instead of davening for money, daven for good health? You need to daven for both. Rifa'enu barech aleinu. That's not a why. That's not an intelligent statement. Instead of davening for money, daven for good health. You got to daven for both. I know one is more important. Instead of davening for feet, you should daven for a head. I mean, you need both. You need feet and a head. Everybody acknowledges a head is more important than feet, but everybody needs feet also.
So many tefillahs.
So, right. So why is the Medrash saying, instead of davening for Torah to enter your system, daven that delicacies shouldn't enter your system? You need to daven for both. Daven to Hashem that you shouldn't get carried away with delicacies, and daven to Hashem the Torah should penetrate. Says Rabbi Yosef Engel Goinas. Rabbi Yosef Engel says that Rebbe is saying he does 2 things. He exerts himself in Torah, that's asay tov, and he doesn't involve himself in pleasure, that's sor meira. But he said it out of order. He should first say, I don't get benefit with my 10 fingers, and I exert myself in Torah. Why does he say I exert myself in Torah, and I don't get benefit from this world? Says Rabbi Yosef Engel, this is the point. Haloi davarhu. On every Jew is written, Kol HaTorah Kula. And if you conquer the Yetzer Hara, and you don't immerse yourself in taiva, you clear away the coding of the Torah, and the Torah will read by itself, and you will memela know Kol HaTorah Kula without any effort. So all you got to do is break away from the Yetzer Hara, and you'll know the Torah automatically because it's etched in your soul. So why did Rebbe exert himself so much in Torah if he didn't get any hana from this world? Because Rebbe did not want to rely on the cop-out easy way. Now, it's not easy, but Rebbe didn't want to rely on the fact, I don't indulge in the Yetzer Hara, so now let me take a freebie and know the Torah for free. Rebbe said, I exert myself in Torah, even though I don't have to, because I don't take pleasure from this world. From there, you know what I learned? That you could get free Torah without exertion, because Rebbe is saying, even though I didn't have to exert, I exerted anyway. But I could learn from there that if a person does not exert himself and merely removes the Yetzer Hara, he will be given and bequeathed Torah for free. Now,
I think it's easier to exert yourself than to get rid of the Yetzer Hara.
Maybe.
For most people anyway.
For most people? But it comes out, to really know the Torah and to have the Keser of Torah, that requires a very high level of amelos. So technically speaking, there are two ways of getting Torah. Either you could work for it, or you could overcome the Yetzer Hara. Now, let's think about the following. This guy who's praying to God that the Torah should enter his system. Rabbi Yosef Engel says, a chiddush, I don't think I would have said this. This guy who wants the Torah to enter his system, does he want to get Torah commensurate to his exertion? That's not what he's praying for. Because if you exert yourself, you don't even have to pray, Rabbi Yosef Engel says. Someone who's yageya in Torah, someone who's amel b'Torah, will automatically get Torah. Because Rabbi Yosef Engel says it's a bris krusa, it's like a sealed deal. Yagati, umatzasi, tamin, yagati, v'loy matzasi, al tamin. If you exert, you will automatically get Torah, so you don't have to pray for that. So this guy who's praying for Torah, what kind of Torah is he praying for? It must be he's praying, God, give me Torah for free beyond what I exert myself. So we tell this guy, pal, you want free Torah without exerting yourself? Instead of praying to God that He should just give you free Torah, overcome your Yetzer Hara, and then you'll just have it memela. Where do I learn that from? How do you know you could get free Torah without working? I know it from Rebbe, because Rebbe said, look, Rebbe was mispire. Even though I didn't have to work, I worked anyway. So this brings us to the following concept. On every single Jew, on Ruvain, on Shimon, on Levi, on Yehuda, on Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and everyone sitting in this room, it's written the entirety of the Torah. However, says Rabbi Yosef Engel, we all know there's a concept that when a person does an Aveira, he's poigim in his koyach HaKedusha. He causes a deficiency. He causes a weakness in his holiness. He, so to speak, makes a pagam. He makes a lacking, a deficiency in his Torah. Says Rabbi Yosef Engel, on every Jew is written 613 mitzvahs. But he says a wondrous chiddush. If someone is nisrashel in a particular mitzvah, so let's say it says on a person, le'sevashel gedi b'chalev imai. Don't eat basar b'chalav. If you eat a cheeseburger, then that pasuk starts getting rubbed out, starts fading, starts getting coated. And now if somebody were to read that mitzvah in the Torah, you would say, oh, what does it say? It would be like, somebody's reading the Torah and the Balkari finds a mistake. You would have to call up an expert. It says, Savasha, I don't know what it says. It says Rabbi Yosef Engel, the quality of the Sefer Torah that is you is dependent on your level of observance. Yeah, it says in the Torah, the limadet hemoisam. But if a person, wastes his time, then slowly, those oisiyos begin to wear out and fade out and dull until ultimately the letters could be completely erased. Now, Marv Rabboisai, Ein tzaddik ba'aretz asher yasa tov v'lo yachter. There is nobody who only does mitzvahs and doesn't do any averos. But a tzaddik at least has roiv mitzvahs. And in the Sefer Torah of the tzaddik, meaning on the soul of the tzaddik, most of the words of the Sefer Torah are intact and are in pristine form. And we know there's a rule from the Gemara Nazir Membeis, Rubai Kakulai. So the Torah of a tzaddik, in other words, if you go to the book of the tzaddik, what's the book, says Rabbi Yosef Engel? There are no books. There's not a book of the righteous. There's not a book of the wicked. There's not a book of the Beinoniyim. There are no books. You know what there are? Jewish souls. And you know what it says? It says the exact same thing in everyone's book. Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim v'es haaretz ve'ela mishpatim asher tasem ufneim lo signoiv. It says in everybody's Sefer Torah, lo signoiv. But in some people, you could see every part of the ois, and you could see all the tagim, and their Sefer Torah is a Sefer Torah mefuar, umahudar. And in some people, you say, like signaiv, that's not in my 10 Commandments. The words are erased. Now, as long as you keep the majority of the mitzvahs, you could still be called a book of a tzaddik, because rubai kakulai. On the other hand, the Beinani, his words, you know what the Beinani is? I remember my Zayda brought over Sifrei Torah from Europe. So Sefer Torah you bring up from Europe. I guess it says Bereshis bara Elokim, but it's definitely not sharp, and you can't really see the tagim. And are the letters touching? Are they not touching? Is it a kosher Sefer? So you bring it to a sofer, and sometimes they'll say, we could fix it, we can fix it, it will cost you $100,000. You say, I could buy a new one for $50,000. He says, Gesundheit, you should buy a new one. What are you fixing this one? But a Beinani Sefer Torah, namely the soul of the Beinani, Kemad, every word is rubbed out, phased out, and the book of the wicked is erased. There is no book of tzaddikim, and there's no book of Rishaim, and there's no book of Beinonim. The book of the tzaddik is a Sefer Torah Shalem. The book of the Rasha is an erased Sefer Torah, and the book of the Beinani are letters that are, it depends which kid you call up to decipher the quality of the letter. Therefore, says Rabbi Yosef Engel, you know how we know there are 3 books, but isn't Moshe Rabbeinu talking about a Sefer Torah? He says, V'em ayin mecheni nami sifrecha. Exactly, because that's what the Sefer Torah we're talking about. You know what the 3 books are? Sifrecha, God, your book, is the book of the righteous. The way God intended our Sefer Torah to be, that's the book of the righteous. Erase me, that's the book of the wicked, because the wicked erased their Sefer Torah. And then the book of the Beinonim is Asher Kasavta, that you once wrote, but now it's not really that sharp. So there are not 3 books. There are 3 kinds of souls, and depending on the quality of your observance, that is the quality of the Sefer Torah. When we say 3 books are open on Rosh Hashanah, that means a person can find his soul in 3 possible states. The Gemara cites another pasuk: Yimachu misefer chayim v'yim tzadikim al yikasevu. The book of the living, that's the Sefer Torah of the soul of the righteous. The book of the wicked is Yimachu, and the book of the Beinonim is they won't be written in the book of the righteous, meaning their soul is not in the state of a Sefer Torah of the righteous. So what?
Do parents also have this privilege in the child when he's in the mother's womb, that the Sefer Torah is taught to him?
I guess you have to say something like that, or maybe he has a delayed inscription. I don't know. But Marv Rabbi Sai, according to this, we could say an amazing chiddush. You ready for this? We once discussed something called the Sefer Torah of Rabbi Meir. There are 4 different midrashim that Rabbi Meir Sefer Torah. One medrash says in Rabbi Meir Sefer Torah, instead of kasnais ar with a ayin, it says kasnais ar with an aleph. And in one place it says, instead of Ubnei Dan Chushim, Rabbi Meir Sefer Torah was Uben Dan Chushim. And in one place, instead of Masaroimi, it says Duma. 4 different discrepancies in Rabbi Meir Sefer Torah. And instead of Toiv Ma'oid, it says Toiv Maves. So we asked, wait a second, if in Rabbi Meir Sefer Torah it said Kas Naisar with a Aleph, then Rabbi Meir Sefer Torah was Pasul. So what kind of Sefer Torah did Rabbi Meir have? So we said, many Mefarshim say it doesn't mean his actual Sefer Torah, it means in his book of Drashos. But still, it's a very unusual record that Rav Meir's Sefer Torah had discrepancies that we don't have in our Sefer Torah. Another interesting thing, and that is the Gemara Megillah Yud Chesam Beis. The Gemara says when you're writing any soifrim here, no jewelers, no soifrim, okay.
Plain Jews.
Plain Jews. No such thing as a plain Jew. The Gemara says that a dentist?
Yeah.
Gewaldig. Okay, so the Gemara says that you cannot write a Megillah unless you copy it from a previous Megillah. Ein kois a Megillah al peh. In other words, you can't, I know about Yibi Megillah, you have to copy. So the Gemara asked, but Rabbi Meir went to Asya, and he wrote a Megillah about peh. So the Gemara says, Shani Rabbi Meir! That about Rabbi Meir it says, the einecha v'afapecha yaishiru negdecha. Your eyelids will look straight ahead. So there's a very interesting sefer that's going to come out next week, number 26, that offers what's pshat in the Gemara Megillah that Rabbi Meir would be able to write a sefer Torah from Baal Peh, because the answer is Rabbi Meir wasn't copying it from an actual sefer, but Rabbi Meir's knew the Torah so well that he could, so to speak, look ahead, and in his mind's eye he saw a sefer Torah and he sort of copied it from that etching in his mind's eye. But according to Rabbi Yosef Engel, the pshat is kaftar v'ferach. You know what it could mean that Rabbi Meir wrote a sefer Torah? You know what he copied it from? You know which sefer Torah he copied it from? The sefer Torah of his neshama. But you can't read the Sefer Torah of Neshama. You know why you can't read your Sefer Torah of Neshama? Because you have a guf, and the guf has taiva. But Rabbi Meir read the pasuk Kasnoi Or with an aleph. Rabbi Meir did not have like a physical guf of or. His guf was luminescent. It was translucent. So he was able to look straight into his soul and copy from the Sefer Torah in his soul. When the Chazal say in Rabbi Meir's Sefer Torah it said with an aleph or with a maves. What does it mean in his Sefer Torah? Not the Sefer Torah in the Aron it said these things, but on the Sefer Torah of his soul, there were these discrepancies. So Rabbi Meir's Sefer Torah in the Aron was Avada Kosher. And these Shinuyim, we could say, were on the Sefer Torah of his Neshama. Says Rabbi Yosef Engel, Chazal tell us that the Jewish people in the times of the Churban, they sinned doubly. Like it says, it says Chet Chata Yerushalayim. What's the nigun? Chet Chata Yerushalayim Alkein L'nidayas. We sinned doubly and we were punished doubly. Ki lacha miyad Hashem kiflayim b'chol chatoiseha. And we have double nechama. So the question is, how did we sin doubly? And how did we have double nechama? Says Rabbi Yosef Engel, very, very pashat. When a person does an avera, it's a double sin. Because not only did you, let's say, eat basar b'chalav, you also did another avera. You know what avera you did? You were over that avera of mechika sefer Torah. You erased the Torah scroll. And then it comes out, says Rabbi Yosef Engel, what happens when you do tshuva, Rabbi Isai? It must be when a person does tshuva, he's able to polish and be magia the Sefer Torah and fix the Sefer Torah. So when you do tshuva, you're doing a double mitzvah. What's the double mitzvah? Number one, you're doing the mitzvah of tshuva, and number two, you're being mekayim the mitzvah of kesivas Sefer Torah. Says Rabbi Yosef Engel, going back to number 7, in what words of the pasuk in Yeshaya are used to describe the Baal Tshuva? V'zeh yichtov yodoi l'Hashem. He uses his hand to write for Hashem. Elu Balei Tshuva. You know what Balei Tshuva are? Those who write a Sefer Torah. Because they're taking the erased part of their soul and they're rewriting it, they're polishing it, they're sharpening it. So the Balei Tshuva are called those who write the Sefer Torah. So I want to suggest, what parsha do we always read? Aser Simei Tshuva. Or Hazinu. What mitzvah do we read? Ksivas Sefer Torah, because that's the avodah of that zman of the year. The avodah is to make sure that our Sefer is shalem. If there are any mitzvahs that got nimchak, you want to rewrite them by doing tshuva. Any mitzvahs that need improvement, you want to be magia them. Any tagim, if you want to beautify the oisios, if you want your Sefer Torah to be mahudar, that is the avodah of Asar Simei Tshuva, the mitzvah of Ksivas Sefer Torah. So it comes out very interesting. The Pri Megadim wrote a sefer of philosophical chakiros. It's called Matan Scharan Shel Mitzvahs. And he has the following chakira. let's say a person does an Avera on Shabbos. Is it worse to do an Avera on Shabbos than it is during the week? So says Rabbi Yosef Engel, based on the above presentation, Avada and Avada, it's worse to do an Avera on Shabbos. You know why? Because you do an Avera on Shabbos, aside from doing the Avera, you're also over on the Malacha of Ruchnius, of Mechikas Kesiva. Yeah, so good kasha. Yeah, I had that question. I wrote it down over here. So Asi's asking, so how do you do Teshuvah on Shabbos? L'chayra, you're what? You're not erasing. So you can say erasing you are because you're covering it over. But the writing, maybe it's just mamela, it's a grama. I don't know. We'll let you think about it. However, says Rabbi Yosef Engel, he concludes as follows. V'duk b'chol zeh. Think carefully about this premise, about this suggestion, that when a person does an Aveira, he's literally erasing words in a Sefer Torah. And when you do Teshuvah, you're writing. He says, Ki dvarenu eila, these words, Hema hakdama chadasha. This is like a new premise. This is a new foundational concept. He says, Unachoyna, it's correct, b'drush. In other words, this is like a fundamental principle in the world of drush that Rabbi Yosef Engel is very proud of. And again, the bottom line is that instead of the usual way we think of the three books of Rosh Hashanah, Tzadikim, Rishon, and Beinonim, Rabbi Yosef Engel learns that there are not three books. Because the book of the wicked is the book that is erased. What exactly is erased? There's one book. The book is your soul. The soul has in it everything it needs. Which Rabbi Yosef Engel says the reason Rabbi Shalom did it this way is that all a person has to do really is overcome the Yetzer Hara a little bit, and then it's within us. We say, Rabbi Shalom, Ritzoynenu la'asos ritzoyncha. It is our will to do your will. Umi ma'akev. What is the impediment? Sa'ar shebe'isa. In other words, the inherent internal desire of the Jew is to do what he's programmed to do. And what are we programmed to do? It says on the manual. Look on the soul. On the soul it says, Kol Torah Kula. This is what we want to do. This is what we're programmed to do. This is what we're meant to accomplish. It's just that there's a coding. And if we could just uncover through the process of Teshuvah, then it will be revealed that really Kol Yisrael, Yesh Lahem Chelek L'Olam Haba, Shenemar V'Amech Kulam Tzadikim, that inherently the soul of every Jew is the soul of a tzaddik. And if we remove the coding, Be'ez Hashem, we should all be zoicha to a ksiva v'chasima toiva. Agot yar, shkoyach for listening. Shkoyach.
Thank you.
Baruch Tia, thanks. Shkoyach.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.